Welcome to Operation Data Analytics. Today we're going to cover the count function in Microsoft Excel. The count function can be used to count the number of cells in a given selection or range that contain values. In our first example, I'm going to go ahead and click on cell F1, and then I'm going to type equals count, open parentheses, and then I'm going to go ahead and hover over column C, and I'm going to go ahead and left click. This is going to cause the entire column C to be selected. Next, I'm going to type a close parentheses, and then I'm going to hit enter on the keyboard. So you can see the result is showing 15 for our value in F1. Now, an important note with the count function is the count function is going to exclusively be counting cells that have values in them or numbers in them. So in this example, this range that we typed up actually has 16 cells, but since the top cell or the header actually only contains text, then the count function knows to ignore this cell and only count the cells where an actual number or value exists. In our next example, I'm going to show you how to use the count function to count multiple columns at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the function we have, and I'm going to type equals count, open parentheses, and then I'm going to do the same thing we did in example 1, where I'm going to left click on column C. And now instead of closing the parentheses, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to type a comma, and then I'm going to go ahead and left click on column D. Now I'm going to go ahead and close the parentheses, and I'm going to hit enter on the keyboard. So now you can see that cell F1 is showing a value of 30, which is a count of all of the cells between C2 to D16, which is 30 values. Again, an important note, just like we talked about in example 1, is the count function is going to ignore cells that just have text in them. So C1 and D1 are not being included in the count because there is no value in them. Now, if we were to switch these to values, you'll see that the counter actually switched from 30 to 32 because it's now recognizing that there are 32 values in C and D. Now let's say that we just want to count the specific cells for a specific employee. So let's take Jack Harrison, for example. Let's say we want to see how many actual sales Jack Harrison made. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the function we have, and I'm going to type equals count, open parentheses, and then I'm going to go ahead and click on the first cell that corresponds with Jack Harrison, which is going to be C2. Next, I'm going to type a comma, and then I'm going to locate the next cell value below that corresponds to Jack Harrison, which is going to be C5. I'm going to go ahead and repeat those steps until I've selected all of the cell values that correspond to Jack Harrison. Once everything's selected, I'm going to go ahead and close the parentheses, and then I'm going to hit enter on the keyboard. Now the count is showing 5, which corresponds to the amount of sales that correspond to Jack Harrison. In our final example, I'm going to show you how Excel actually automatically does a count function for you based on any active selection that you have. Now there is one distinction that we're going to make between this and the actual count function that we've been using. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I am going to select column C. And then if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, you're going to see that the count is showing 16. Now this is important to note because the actual function that we typed in was only showing 15 for the same selection that we made earlier, whereas the count in the bottom right-hand corner is showing 16. This is because the bottom right-hand corner is going to perform a count including cells that have text in them. Essentially, it's counting anything that is not blank. So it's very useful still, especially if you just keep in mind that it's including the header or any cells with text, but it is important to know that if you are going to use the count function in the bottom right, that it is including actual headers with text as well. That's everything that we have for today's video. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to see more content like this in the future.